Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew-Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew-Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew-Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew-Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew-Built Conicals. You can trust Brew-Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew-Built at morebeer.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Crosley, and welcome to this special edition of The Session. In this second installment of our trip to the 2024 Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival in Paso Robles, California, we have yet another great panel of world-renowned brewers. To change things up a bit topic-wise, we decided to cover some of the things that breweries do other than beer. Things like community outreach, partnerships, causes, and involvement in things that their customers care about. So we enlisted Natalie Cilurzo from Russian River Brewing Company in California, MCCready from Mountain Culture in New South Wales, Australia, and Bob Kunz from Highland Park in Los Angeles. These three have an incredible ability to keep their finger on the pulse of their communities, responding constantly with new ideas, initiatives, and methods of reaching outside the brewery. So listen in as we discuss it all live from the Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival. Hey guys, I'm Justin Crosley. I'm from the Brewing Network, and I am lucky enough to get invited every year to do the Behind the Beer panels for Firestone Walker Brewing Company. I have had some exceptional, amazing guests on this stage over the years, and today is no exception. I have some really cool guests with me today. Anybody ever heard of this little place, Russian River Brewing Company? Really? Like 8 of you have heard of Russian River Brewing Company? Yeah. Okay. We're going to get a little more obscure, but it's just as awesome. How about Mountain Culture from Australia? Yeah. You might have learned about them today. You're going to learn more. Incredible brewing company. And then also, it's a little south of us. They've won a bunch of awards. It's just Highland Park Brewing Company. Maybe you've heard of them. Yeah. All right, well, that's our panel for today. I've got Natalie Cilurzo. She's next to me. She's one of the owners of Russian River Brewing Company. I prefer to call her the best owner of Russian River Brewing Company. And yeah, well, mostly because Vinny's sitting right there, and I like to let him know that you're my favorite. Then we have MCCready from Mountain Culture, fresh from Australia. Yeah, thanks for being here. And then we've got Bob from Highland Park Brewing Company. Like I said, multi-award-winning, incredible beers. The cool news is we have 5 different beers that we're going to put in your glass over this panel. So hang out, relax with us, and we're going to do that. Today's topic it's actually about you guys. It's about how breweries engage with the public and with their communities and getting beyond the beer. We all obviously love beer, and I think one of the reasons we love it is how it sort of brings people together, how it brings communities together, and it's probably why most of us got into this business, and it's why maybe most of you enjoy it. And so we're going to talk today about how some of the best breweries in the world engage you, and engage nonprofits, and engage their communities in how we relate to beer. Do I have that right, Natalie?
Sure.
I think that's what we're here for.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, perfect. So the first beer in your glass is from Russian River Brewing Company, and it's a Belgian blonde ale, which is actually brewed with a very unique grain.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
I will. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Can you hear me out there? A couple of you? All right. As Justin said, I'm Natalie Cilurzo. I'm the co-owner of Russian River Brewing Company, and it's a beautiful day. If anybody's ever been to this festival before, you know that the weather is spectacular today. Appreciate everybody coming out and coming to our panel and hanging out with us for a little bit. So the beer in your glass is a Belgian blonde ale brewed with an ancient African grain called fonio. So our friend Garrett Oliver from Brooklyn Brewery. Some of you have heard of Garrett? Anybody? Brooklyn Brewery?
Yeah. Legend.
Garrett reached out to us a few months ago and asked us if we would participate in an international collaboration focusing on this ancient African grain, fonio, and brewing a beer with Brooklyn. And it's been a really, really fun project so far. This is something we had never, ever heard of before. So fonio is a perennial grass that grows mostly in West Africa, but has also been kind of mostly ripped out of the ground over the years by colonists, and you know how those things kind of go. And then annual wheat grasses are planted in their place, and so. But there are some small villages that still grow fonio, and they rely on it as to sustain themselves. And Garrett learned about this grain and brewed a beer with it in 2019, and we got to taste it at the Great American Beer Festival, and we were really, really intrigued by the grain. And so here we are post-COVID, and Garrett finally had the opportunity to actually do this really cool project. So this is the pilot batch for the beer. So Vinny brewed this himself in our pilot brewery. It's a 5-barrel batch. Like I said, it's a Belgian blonde ale brewed with a Belgian yeast strain. So it has some of those kind of fruity, spicy notes that you would get from a yeast strain like that. But Vinny thought that the fonio would do really well in this beer because the fonio itself has kind of more fruity notes to it. You can get like wine grape and lychee, and I think it really complements nicely. So the grain bill is about 20% fonio. The fonio itself, I have a jar of it up here, so if you're interested in checking it out, it actually looks like sand, but it actually cooks like couscous. So if anybody's cooked couscous, it kind of puffs up a little bit in the water. It is an unmalted grain. They remove the hulls, and then they pre-gelatinize it so that we can just throw it right into the mash tun along with the other grains. And we think that it adds a really nice flavor to the beer. So do you want me to talk about why I'm doing this, or?
I do.
Okay.
A couple questions about the grain, though, because it looks super difficult to use in a mash tun, that it might gum up and like you can't get the water through.
Vinny, do you add rice hulls? No.
It just
no
works? Because even you mentioning couscous, that to me means it sort of expands with water.
A little bit, but not a lot. Not like as much as couscous.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of stays pretty small.
And it's a fermentable? It's adding fermentable sugars?
Yeah, it adds fermentable sugars to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so
what percentage, or ish? Are we talking about like most of it is fonio?
20%. 20% of the malt bill or the grain bill is fonio. So just enough to get the flavors, but not too much. I think one of the brewers made a 100% fonio beer. Carlsberg is part of this project, and they're making a 100% fonio beer. I'm really excited to try that to see how they actually brew that.
Okay, so aside from the flavor profile, why are you doing it? Why is it important to try something like this?
So a couple of years ago, we started experimenting with a grain called Kernza. Kernza is grown here in the United States. It was developed by the Land Institute, and it's a perennial wheatgrass. And so all the brewers out there, you know, or I'm sure most of you know, that most grasses that we use for food are annual grasses, and so they're pulled out and replanted year after year after year. And so after a century or more of these types of farming practices, the soils have been really depleted of nutrients, and also like the water as well. You requires more inputs and more water, and also it's really hard to grow organic things when you've been kind of over farming the soils. And so as brewers, we feel responsible to pay more attention to the agricultural products that we're using, because we are 100% reliant on agricultural products. We use grains, and we use hops, and we use other products in our beers that are grown by farmers. And so Vinny and I just feel really passionate and strongly that we need to be paying more attention to this as brewers for the future, and start messing around with, trying to brew with Kernza, and then this project with Fonio came up, and we were like, oh, that sounds cool. Let's try that. That's also better for the environment, and it supports the small villages in Africa, and it's really cool to do a project with Garrett Oliver. Of course. There's that. But so we just feel really strongly about exploring alternative brewing grains, and that's why we're doing this project. But we also feel that the customers care a lot more these days about where our ingredients are coming from and about where their food sources are coming from. And so we feel like this is also a great way for us to not only educate ourselves, but for us to educate and engage with our team, because they love this kind of thing. They get to learn as well along with us. And then also for our beer consumers, because they're very intrigued by things like this, and they really appreciate what we as brewers do, the extra effort that we make to pay more attention to the ingredients that we use in our products.
Absolutely. And is it only grown in Africa right now?
As far as I know, it's only grown in Africa. I think mostly West Africa.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the beer's delicious. You guys enjoy the Belgian blonde? It tastes like a Belgian blonde, which is great. It's not just putting a weird grain in there that makes it all different. It tastes like a Belgian blonde ale with a sustainable product. I love this. All right, let's meet DJ from Mountain Culture, and we're going to pour his beer as well. You guys ready for that? Let's do that. Well, whichever one you choose. Just tell me which one it is. Bumbershoot. All right, tell us about this beer that we're about to pour in their glass, DJ.
All right. How y'all going? I hope everybody's having a good day so far. Excellent. My name's DJ McCready. I'm the co-owner of Mountain Culture Brewing. Really excited because this is the first time our brewery's actually poured beer at a festival in the U.S. So I feel like we're setting the bar really, really high for ourselves here. Don't know if we can go up. In Australia, they would say maybe we peaked too soon. But anyways, we're gonna go with it. We're really happy to be here. Really feel honored to be here. Quick snapshot about Mountain Culture. We opened up about 4 years ago in a place called the Blue Mountains, right outside of Sydney. So
what are the Blue Mountains?
Blue Mountains is like this epic wilderness heritage area, World Heritage area. It's huge. It's about there's about the landmass of country of Jamaica that surrounds basically our little area that our brewery's in, but it's still only about an hour and a half outside of the country's major cities. So it's just this wonderland for wilderness adventures, a really beautiful spot, really epic place for climbing, trail running, all of the fun things to do that you could probably enjoy a beer afterwards.
Is it like it's a national park, basically, like protected and?
Yep, national park, really pristine. So it was an interesting process opening up a brewery in that area because they were really looking at everything we were doing very closely, given how pristine of an area it is.
Like what? Like worried about your water waste or?
Worried about water waste, craft brewing in Australia is still a good bit behind craft brewing here in the U.S. So they were just kind of like, what the hell are you doing? I don't understand this concept of you want to make this. And we basically had to really push it towards them of like, hey, think of it as like, you want us to open up a pub. This brewery's like a kitchen for our pub. But we're just making our beer there, which is kind of how we got it over the line in the end. But we did have to do a lot, around our, wastewater and trying to make sure that we were, keeping everything, as low risk to the environment as possible.
And so what is, you mentioned your concept, like what is the concept? Because it looks to me like your concept was to be involved in the Blue Mountains and to like be a starting point for people to explore.
Big time, So yeah, the Blue Mountains, like I said, it's it's this beautiful wilderness area right outside of Sydney. So attracts a lot of international attention for people visiting Sydney, visiting Australia, but also attracts a lot of domestic tourism. But, with all of that being said, it's still, an area that's, I think, trying to find its feet as far as, developing that side of things, developing sustainable tourism, developing, why people would come up there, besides just going out on hiking trips. So yeah, it was a really unique opportunity that we thought that we could put something in an area that we really loved and then showcase it around the country by being able to produce our beer and really represent the Blue Mountains outside of that small area.
Are you all from there? Like you were there already, or you decided you just loved the area and wanted to do something?
I just love the area. So I'm originally from North Carolina, which
there we
lets
go.
everybody
Because everyone's
down
wondering,
over
like, he's Australian.
I'll throw
like,
a
I'm
mate
lying
in there
to you.
every once in a while, but yeah, it still doesn't fly.
Like, I promise, he's from Australia.
Yeah, sorry.
How did you end up from North Carolina over there?
I was in the brewing industry here in the States from the time I was about 22 years old, and worked for a few breweries in Carolina and Colorado, and really just, I wanted a big adventure at the end of the day, and moved over to Australia to be part of a different startup brewery in Sydney. And when I got there, was like, this place has so much opportunity for craft beer. It was just like, a scene that was starting to unfold in Australia, but still, like, people were so interested in really quality products. The coffee scene was amazing, the wine scene was amazing, the beer scene was okay. But and the main reason why I ended up staying in Australia is I met my wife.
There we go. Everyone knew that was coming.
Yeah.
All right. Well, nicely done. Did you tell us about the beer? I
haven't told you about the beer yet. Sorry,
so
I'm really bad about getting sidetracked. ADD kicks in almost immediately.
It's okay. Me too.
So the beer that we have is called Bumbashoot. One of the things about Australia is they like funny words for everything. So Bumbashoot is actually Aussie slang for an umbrella, and this is a wet hop beer. So we used what was one of Australia's biggest hop varieties that people loved, and then it kind of went downhill for a while, but this year it seems to be back. So we used Galaxy in this year's version of Bumbashoot.
Is that an Australian hop? Or
it
just
is.
What do you? Okay.
Galaxy.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
I love Galaxy.
So Bumbashoot's actually a collaboration between our brewery and two other breweries. So one an Aussie brand called Wildflower, and then Steve, our mate, from Cloudburst up in Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
Who seems to be the wet hop master.
Yeah,
so
he's
came
pretty
over
good.
came over there and showed us what to do with it using our Aussie hops.
When did you open?
We opened up in 2019.
Okay. Oh, perfect timing.
It was amazing timing. So, as I mentioned, we really went out to open up in this cool wilderness area, the Blue Mountains, tourist destination for locals and overseas travelers. We opened up 2019, and, our first hurdle was actually these massive bushfires that came through. So we opened up in, I think, October, and in November, like, half of Australia was just burning, and like the Blue Mountains was the middle of it. So we're like, yeah, we've had a few challenges along the way. But
you're in one of the only other places in the world that we can totally relate to that.
Yeah,
California and wildfires. Oh my gosh. So open in 2019.
Open in 2019. We were going for brew pub. One, we wanted to have a real connection with the customers. We wanted to play around with different recipes. We wanted to involve the local community in what we were doing. Also, it was my wife and I that started up the brewery, and that's just all we could afford to open at the time. We were just like, we don't have any money to buy a giant brew kit or, do all these things. So we're like, this is a great way to, open up and.
How big's your brew system? Just curious. Are we talking about like a home brew system here?
Our original one was small. It was 12 hectoliters or
Okay.
10 barrels.
10 barrels.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
That's not tiny. That's okay.
It was all right. It was all right. We've upgraded a bit since then. So
Because of success?
Because, yeah, we had a bit of a whirlwind adventure, opening up with bushfires, made us really pivot our business idea quickly.
Okay.
And we started canning our beer right off the bat. And we wanted to take that idea of a brew pub and say, okay, well, if we want to come out with new beers all the time, we want to be experimenting with what we're doing. We want to be giving something for people to be excited about. If they're not coming up here because the whole place is on fire, we should probably be delivering it to them. And we were really lucky that we pivoted early on and did that because COVID lockdown came through.
Sure.
One of Australia's great advantages, though, is that you can send beer through the mail anywhere. So
Over the whole country.
Over the whole country, it's totally legal. It's fine, and people are pretty used to it because it's a fairly spread out place. So we shifted our brew pub model into an e-commerce model.
Okay.
And we found that all of a sudden we went from being this really tiny local brewery to having a national presence really quickly.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure Bob can agree, but I know the Cilurzos would love that rule. Do you know how popular Pliny is over the entire country and they can't send it everywhere? What a great, you guys just send it away.
It was a great model. I remember we laid off all of our staff, when we had COVID lockdowns come through and the country was like, everything's on standstill. So we just had this skeleton crew. And the first week, I remember we put our beer up online and, it was really basic. And we sent beer to a few influencers as well. And we're like, we'll just see. And, I think we sold like 20 or 30 cases of beer. And we were like, all right, that's cool. Like, I was like doing the math and I was like, we could do that. We could sell some t-shirts at a gas station. We could sell a couple burgers out the drive-thru. Like, maybe we can keep the lights on here. And I was like, cool. And, the beer went out and, I really don't follow things on social media, but our marketing guy came by and he's like, there's a bit of buzz around the beer. There's a bit of buzz right now. It's like, cool. So the next week we did it. We put it up online, like our beer, and the guy comes by like an hour after we do that, and he's like, hey, man, we sold all of our beer. I'm like, oh, that's cool, 20 cases. And he's like, no, we sold every can of beer in this whole building.
Yeah.
He's like, so we just brought back like all of our team. We just turned our brew pub into this like shipping and receiving warehouse. We were like production brew pubbing for a good while.
All right, this is a good moment to thank these folks. Like, I know we all want to put the pandemic behind us, and it pretty much is. We're still dealing with some of the results of it. But folks like you signed up for like direct order beer. I know that Russian River was, In other words, the beer industry still exists because of folks like you. So thank you for it was beer fans too. And a couple people who just wanted to drink a lot while they were staying at home. But it was mostly beer fans who sort of saved us. Also, that's a great story.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks y'all. I think you have a second beer to pour too. Should we do that?
We do have a second beer.
You guys have empty glasses?
Yep.
We can pour another beer. What's your second beer?
So our second beer is called Riding the Pines. So it's a New World Pilsner that we've come out with. We brewed it in collaboration with West Coast Brewing. West Coast Brewing's over in Japan. So one of the things that we really love focusing on, given that Australia is an island, it's really removed, I think, for the rest of the world, is trying to bring in like craft beer influence from folks that we've met overseas. So we really love focusing on doing collabs. We really love showcasing with our facility people from overseas brewing techniques that's going to, I guess, best represent them in Australia, given that it's really hard to ship things there. It's getting beer over there that's in this style, that's hoppier style, that's still like representative of the quality that it was at the brewery is pretty tricky a lot of times. So we really love the opportunity to do collabs. So Riding the Pines is a really neat one. We used a couple of kiwi hops in it. It's pretty resinous. It's pretty. It's a little bit dank, but it's got that real kind of clean characteristic of combining like two styles that we really love, like West Coast IPA and Pilsner.
I love that the Australians still call it West Coast IPA. It's a West Coast IPA. Yeah. It's delicious. It's got some dank. Yeah. I love dank. Very nice. So I did want to also ask, just before we can move on to Bob as well, but so you're in this location and you want to be part of the Blue Mountain culture. What does that look like? So if I'm a tourist, if I'm coming through and I'm going to see the Blue Mountains, how does your brewery help me experience that?
100%. So we do a lot of engagement with the local community. The Blue Mountains is just a real melting pot of, there's a big outdoor community there. There's a big art community there. There's a big music scene there. So we're constantly bringing in, different artists to work on can art with us, to work on different projects in the brewery. We're, heavily involved with any kind of event. So Blue Mountains, again, it's a great area for, people traveling to for specific events. Like we host big mountain biking weekends up there, big trail running weekends. So, bringing the brewery to be involved in that really helps, branch out to different crowds, bring different people in. So we really try and just incorporate what we're doing with everything else that's happening there in the mountains.
And how far away is the next craft brewery from you? Just curious.
Pretty far. There's
talking hundreds of miles?
Nah, maybe not hundreds of miles. Maybe like an hour drive.
Okay. Yeah. Not too bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk to Bob too, because we got to get more beer in your glass. Bob from Highland Park, and like I said, we're going to talk about also how we engage. Yeah, you got fans, Bob. Did you pay these folks to? Yeah. Okay. So Bob's one of my favorite brewers, by the way. I just absolutely love your beer. And we were discussing this topic before we got up here, which is about how we engage with folks and our customers. And Bob brought up some other things too. He was like, while we engage with our customers, how do we also engage with our employees, like our staff? The brewing industry is an interesting industry. Like most of us are in it because we love it, not because it makes us 7-figure salaries, which is like, that's the tech industry, which is really boring. So I thought this was like a pretty interesting topic for us. How do we engage with our customers while also, taking care of our staff? We're going to pour your beer in a second, so don't talk to us about your beer yet, but maybe address that.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing. It's like Highland Park Brewery started in 2014. We sought out, or I opened the brewery, and it was my passion project. It was me sort of escaping the work world that I was in and pursuing this.
What did you do? What was your other job?
I had worked as a brewer, and I had worked as sort of like bar management, that sort of thing. So kind of both sides of the industry that we're in. And it was a direct response from like working for other people and not finding satisfaction in that, and transitioning to pursuing my dream of like, exploring flavor through fermentation. And I find it's been a really, challenging and wonderful journey in the past 10 years to take something that I was pursuing that was like my love and pursuit of excellence in beer. And for the first 4 years, it was Highland Park Brewery was essentially just me and one other person. And it was very easy to sort of like live out that dream.
Sure, until you were successful at that.
And so it's like, oh, okay, it's like this is fulfilling for me. And then in 2018, we opened a larger facility with a tap room, a kitchen. We now have 50 employees. And it's been a very hard challenge of transitioning from me pursuing a dream to me impacting 50 people and the majority of their lives that they're giving to, Highland Park Brewery and the surrounding community that we're in. And so it's something that I think about a lot, and I think it affects me and the people I'm surrounded with all the time a lot.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I love this topic, and I brought it up to Natalie before the show, for this panel, and we sort of brought it down to company culture, too. So the brewing industry, and by the way, most small businesses cannot offer the salaries of the tech world. So what is it that we offer? And I think a big part of that is a company culture, right? And the culture that we provide for our employees is the same that we want to provide for our customers, right? It all should be part of the same fabric. And I think some of you have been to breweries who don't subscribe to this. You know when it's fake. You know when it's bullshit. So like it's companies like yours and like Russian River who kind of, hey, how do we do the same philosophy for our staff that we do for our customers? And I think that's what you were trying to get at. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you went from 2 employees to 50 in how long?
I mean, we pretty much went from 2 employees. I mean, our first brewery is a little 480 square foot wholesale only brewery to, a 9,000 square feet facility that had a kitchen and a tap room and, a 15 barrel brew house. Not big, but it required more people than just myself to like manage and work all that. So 2 to about 25, and then we've added about 25 over the past 6 years.
Okay. Well, why don't we pour Bob's beer for everybody? And then, Natalie, I want to kind of ask you the same question. You guys, similar trajectory, went from a tiny brew pub in Santa Rosa to what you are today. But I know that company culture, I'll give you mine. I know company culture is important to you.
Yeah. So we opened 20 years ago in Santa Rosa with 28 employees, and now we have 2 breweries and about 180 employees. And so, like employee retention, employee engagement has become even more important because it's just harder to engage with that many employees. It's harder for me and Vinny to get to know everybody on a personal level. And so what we do is we try to obviously offer the best benefits that we possibly can, but I think education is something that we do pretty well. We do offer like sensory training and we do sensory, thank you, every week with our production team. Everybody's welcome. We do offer other trainings and stuff for our staff, and so I think educating your team is a great way to really engage with them and make them feel like they're part of the bigger picture, that they're not just coming in and clocking in and doing their job and clocking out, that they actually have a say in what we're doing. They have an opinion, and their opinion matters. And I think it's really, really important that you tell your team that, I do care about what you think. What do you think? And when they tell you what they think, you can't just disregard it. Sure, yeah, we get good ideas and we get not so good ideas, but it's still really important because you never know where their best ideas might come from, because these people, our team, they're, I would say, the front lines. They're out waiting on the guests. They're out putting the beer into bottles and kegs. They're out there doing all this stuff that Vinny and I can't do by ourselves anymore because our company is strictly just too big. So it's really important that we really engage with our team and make them feel appreciated and supported and even loved. If COVID wasn't the loneliest, most stressful time that we all went through, we were all so lonely. And I would send out emails to our entire team all of the time, checking in with them, telling them what the latest, business, requirements du jour were, just like, hey, if you don't understand, if you don't know where to get a COVID test or all that. And I'm just using that as an example to engage, to stay engaged with the team. And so I think just staying engaged, making them understand that they are supported, they are loved, they are cared for, and they're safe. That they're in a safe environment, because we want all of our team to feel welcome, regardless of their backgrounds. And you don't know what home situation they maybe were raised in or what home situation they're in now. And we want them to feel like going to work is a really safe, supportive type place for me. And so that's really, really important. Being a woman brewery owner, I know there's 1 or 2 other women brewery owners out there that, it's really important that women, especially, and other people of other diverse backgrounds come into your locations and feel safe and comfortable and are happy sitting at the bar by themselves and knowing that they're welcome. So anyway, that was a long way to say that.
I love this. And then, by the way, putting your money where your mouth is, you guys recently had an anniversary party where you did not invite all of your industry friends. No, I didn't get invited. I was. You invited your customers. You were like, hey, will you guys come party with us? Because we're here because of you.
We did. Yeah. So we had our 20th annual Pliny the Younger release, and then a week later we had our 20th anniversary party at the Santa Rosa pub, and we invited our customers, because we wanted to thank them for supporting us for 20 years. And it was really, really important to us that we showed them how important they were. And they all got a VIP wristband, and they got 2 drink tickets. And we didn't do a lot. It didn't take a lot. But they were like, wow, we really appreciate being thanked. And we didn't invite you. And I'm sorry.
It's totally fine. I do love this too, and in fact, there's another story that Vinny had told me. So you guys have the brew pub in Santa Rosa, and then you open the big place. And Vinny he sort of, I think, diminishes how awesome the big place is. He's like, yeah, we just opened the big place so that the locals could have the small place back. Right? Like, you're like, let's just give it, because people like me, we're taking over the small place. All of us visitors. Yeah. So, Bob, what's the difference between, tiny brewery and now 50 employees? How are you able to engage now with your customers and your staff?
I'm learning, so I think I think keeping sort of a growth mindset, that you're always learning, and that what you know now is probably not what you're going to know tomorrow. So to keep that openness to a new perspective or new path. I think one thing is people want meaningful work, and so it's funny. It's only been in the past couple of years that we have actually written out our values and put together a code of conduct of what we expect for our team, what we expect for our customers, what we present that to our collaborators, but giving clarity as to what we stand for does provide more meaningful work for those who are working for us, because they know I know that's what Bob stands for. I know that I want to be on his team.
Yeah.
And and then he's hopefully I'm doing this, but he's going to support me in what I want and what's meaningful to me and that sort of a thing. So I think some of that harder work, which is kind of corporate bullshit, is actually can be really important, because it defines who you are, and
Sure.
it gives clear parameters of what you're working towards.
Less ambiguity. I'm taking notes right now, Bob, because I've my bar has been open for 10 years, and I feel like I have everything that you've just said in my head, but I don't know that I've expressed it to my team. This is great advice. Let's get it out there. What do we stand for? Let's not leave it ambiguous. Let's have some questions about that and get them answered. By the way, speaking of questions, if anybody has any, there's a microphone right here. You can come up and ask. We've got a few minutes left. We've got more beer to try. Bob, tell us about the beer that's in our glass, which I think is the South Pacific.
Heck yeah. So we got South Pacific Pils. It's a collaboration with our friends at Balter. Balter is an Australian brewery. We made a West Coast Pilsner. We kind of sought out. I don't know if you've had any of the Balter beers, but they make fantastic, low ABV, very flavorful hop-forward beers. Their XPA is absolute crusher. Here we go, right here. Yeah! So anyways, I love their beers. I love that they're low ABV and these expressive hop expressions. Redundancy there. And so we make a lot of hoppy lagers. We call our hoppy lagers West Coast Pilsners, but essentially we're trying to create this package of lower ABV, super hop forward West Coast beers that are drinkable, clean, bright. We like that what lager yeast does to them. It tends to amplify some tropical attributes of the beers. So South Pacific Pilsner, it utilizes the yeast that they typically use for their hoppy lagers, 189. It's a dry yeast from Fermentis. We use Motueka, Mosaic, Nelson dry hop, Laurel in the Whirlpool. So a lot of sort of mix of Southern Hemisphere hops and Pacific Northwest hops. And in this kind of hopefully tight, low ABV, very hop forward expression. The label artwork is kind of fun as well. It's got this snake on the front. My partner Tiff, my business and life partner, does all of our sort of brand development and curates our artwork. But Scotty, who's a brewmaster at Balter, there's a lot of snakes in Australia, and essentially this snake took residence in his garage, and it just stuck in her mind.
Wow.
And so immediately when we decided to do a collaboration, she was like, I got the label, snakes.
Snakes.
And I was like, fuck yeah, snakes.
Snakes on a can.
Yes. So that's the beer. It's a West Coast Pilsner with a snake on the can, Southern Hemisphere hops. I hope you enjoy it.
So I am enjoying it. I do love the label. And we're pouring your second beer, so you're still up at it. Tell us about Pappy, which maybe has the cutest label I've ever seen.
This beer is...
My bad.
Sorry? My dog that passed away.
So recently? Okay, Pappy is beautiful. Pappy's a he or she?
So Pappy was 15.
15?
15. He lived an awesome life.
All right,
I got
Pappy.
15 years with him.
Can we get a round of applause for Pappy, the dog? Yeah. Pappy's lovely, by the way. I haven't even tasted Pappy yet, but he's lovely.
So it's a Nelson and Mosaic West Coast IPA. It actually was kind of a evolution. We made a beer with Garage Project from New Zealand last year, and I think it was my favorite beer that we made last year. It was another West Coast Pilsner, Nelson and Mosaic, and we just wanted to kind of like take that beer and turn it into an IPA. So we essentially did that for this beer. So Nelson Mosaic focused. Trying to think the details. What else in this?
It's super dry.
Yeah, 6.5%, so a little bit lower ABV for a West Coast IPA. This is an interesting part of our West Coast beer making program is that we actually embrace like lager fermentation for all of our West Coast beers. So it is just a ramped up version of our West Coast Pilsner. It's a lager, but it drinks like an IPA because it is an IPA.
It does.
But yeah, that's the beer.
This beer is a perfect example of why I love Highland Park beer and a great tribute to Pappy. To Pappy. There we go. This is a great beer. Delicious. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, if there are no further questions, just know these folks are perfect examples of why we like to engage with our communities. Breweries, small breweries they're small for a reason. We just care about being in that community and how we relate to everybody, whether it be using grains that are more sustainable or the tourist region that you're trying to help out, or taking care of your employees. This is why we do this. None of us are actually getting all that rich off of brewing beer. But we do love our job, and that's pretty dope. So thank you to our panelists today. Of course, we've got Natalie Cilurzo, we've got DJ McCready, and we've got Bob Kunz. Thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been fun. I'll be here next year, I hope, if they don't fire me. And thanks for hanging out with us. Cheers, everybody.
And there you have it. Another informative discussion live from the 2024 Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Fest. That wraps up our coverage of this year's event. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I can't wait to get back next year and bring you even more. Until then, stay tuned for more on the Brewing Network and hit the subscribe button on your podcast app of choice so you're always up to date. And for more information on the Firestone Invitational, head over to firestonewalker.com or follow them on socials at Firestone Walker. Cheers!